After my first tour of Afghanistan, we were in gunfights a hell of a lot over when I got back from that, I found myself chasing the buzz even more. And that's when I got into really fast motorbikes, skydiving and doing adrenaline sports.
I tried to be in a corporate job. I was in the banks. It was soul destroying for me, man. And I knew that I needed to be something that was outdoors, something that was fast paced, something that was different from that conventional 9-to-5 rubbish.
Ross Bowden and Ty Williams, founders of one of the fastest growing communities and brands in Dubai. Ross spent 15 years in the Royal Marine Commandos, whilst Ty worked in South Africa's largest bank whilst representing the country at 2 Touch Rugby World Cups. These two are adrenaline seekers and masters of brand building.
Yeah.
She used to whack you with this fucking
But she
paddle.
was also 80-something years old. And
We take everything that we do right to the limit of what's possible for us subjectively.
Can you talk me through what happened in January?
I didn't see him because I was worried about this certain part of the road. I was worried about a car coming up behind me and turning in on me. When I looked up, there was nothing I could do. And I hit this guy at 70, 80 Ks an hour and landed on my head. I know my visor flipped, broke off the helmet, but my music was still playing in my headphones. Instantly knew that something was wrong because I kind of knew I was still in the road, so I tried to pick myself up to move away, and my body was just super heavy, man.
What would you say to them if they've got a business or they've got a sports team, they want to build out a more solid community? How can they do that? What would your advice be?
Be real, right? Be who you are and be unapologetically so.
Be consistent with whatever you're doing, because it's gonna take time.
Where did the name come from?
In the military, there's a term called the dead man's click. You flick off the safety catch and you operate the trigger. But instead of the gun going bang, the gun goes click, because it's had a malfunction. We decided that we would call it the Dead Man's Clique, CLIQUE, which is a collection of people who look the Grim Reaper in the eye on a daily basis through the activities that we do or through the fact that we're always taking stuff to the edge of the envelope. And that's how the DMC was born.
You'll know from the day you meet us whether you like us or you don't like us, but one thing's for sure, you'll remember us.
I've got a quick favour to ask you. Nearly 90% of people listening to this podcast right now don't follow or subscribe to us. And my goal is to get that down to 80%. So if you've ever liked an episode or a clip that we've put out, please could you click that follow or subscribe button. It helps us more than you know to bring more guests onto the podcast and put out better and better content for you. Thank you. Before we dive into this episode, I want to take a second to speak about our sponsor, Pith & Stem, who we are thrilled to have on this journey with us. As someone who is always looking for ways to improve my healthy hustle, Pith & Stem's drop-top desk stood out to me as the best full work-from-home solution on the market. The world of work from home is changing, and a laptop or screen perched on your lap or dining room table isn't enough anymore. It's imperative that we have a solution at home that matches our productivity station that we can have in our office. But of course, homes weren't made to be worked in, and not all of us want a dedicated study. That's why I'm so happy that Pith & Stem created this perfect solution. They designed this desk with both the needs of the professional and their home in mind. It's perfect because it allows me to have a full productivity station that suits my needs and helps me get the most out of every minute that I spend at it, not only so I work comfortably, but that I actually enjoy it. And the best thing about DropTop, I can close and lock it at the end of the day to keep work and home separate. And it looks awesome on the wall. You can get your DropTop desk anywhere in the world from pithandstem.com or just Google DropTop and you'll find it pretty quickly. Now, let's get on to today's guest. So Head of Danger, Master of Mayhem are the titles that you've given yourself at your company. But I'm really interested in where that passion for adrenaline's come from.
First of all, those titles are interchangeable.
Okay.
So either of us can be the Master of Mayhem and either of us can be the Head of Danger. They are interchangeable. But I'd say really our love for adrenaline goes back as far as I can remember. When Ty and I first met, we were both little skateboarders.
Yeah, skating fish ponds in town.
Yeah, and we were chasing the buzz then. And then as we sort of went into the school, we were competitive sports people at school. But that competitive edge is a chase. You always want to be first or at the top. So because it's an adrenaline thing, right? So we're chasing that first position. We're chasing the top spot. As that sort of develops, as we get older, the need for speed became more and more. And I'm going to talk from my point of view now, and you can go after that. But I'll end up joining the military, and after my first tour of Afghanistan, it was a very kinetic tour. We were in gunfights a hell of a lot over the 6.5 months when we were there. When I got back from that, I found myself chasing a buzz even more. And that's when I got into really fast motorbikes, skydiving, and doing adrenaline sports. And that was to sort of chase that buzz, because there's no buzz that even compares to being in a firefight. It's zero. You can do as much skydiving as you can skydive without a parachute. It's still not going to compare to being shot at, right? It might end the same, unfortunately, but it's certainly not going to touch it.
I think for me, the kind of chasing adrenaline stuff came from just wanting to be different, well, not wanting to be different, but knowing that, like, I was meant for something different. Like, I tried to be in a corporate job. I was in the banks. I was an engineer, and it was soul destroying for me, man. Every day that I spent inside the office listening to people chat shit at the water cooler about whoever was down a corridor or somebody not doing a deadline, the more I just hated that existence. And I knew that I needed to be something that was, outdoors, something that was fast paced, something that was different from that conventional, like, 9-to-5 rubbish. And I found it in wake surfing, in riding bikes, in skydiving, in combat sports, jiu-jitsu, and in the gym and stuff. And, once that bug bites you, it's incredibly hard to get away. Like you were saying, you came back from Afghanistan and you've had that bug, that hit of adrenaline. It's so hard to go back to being normal after that. So
100% agree.
You just keep chasing it,
Really interesting. So let me take you all the way back to when you're growing up in South Africa. When did you first meet? What was life like growing up in South Africa?
So Ross and I met in 1999. We had both applied to the same high school, and when you apply to that high school, you have to select your summer sport, right? And we both selected rowing, and luckily for us, the rowing camp was actually 3 months before we got to the school. So I met Ross there. Growing up together, we didn't really know each other, but we knew that we were kind of both mongrels, and we kind of connected.
Yeah, so I'll jump in there. So rowing camp, before high school started, we don't know anybody. We're just young kids. I was 12, he was 13. And you just
I was bigger than you.
He was much bigger than me at the time. Fortunately, puberty happened for me a little bit later on, and then I became much bigger than Ty, like way bigger, honestly, like double the size of him. It's crazy. Can't see it when he's sitting over there, but so we're just these really young kids and get put into this really high pressure environment at this rowing camp, for the first time, away from our comfort zones, away from our family, away from our friends, and just get put with a new group of people. And the school that we went to was a prestigious sports school called Parktown Boys High School in Johannesburg. So we had no idea about the hierarchy of different school years, and it was very apparent that when we got there that we were the bottom of the ladder, and that became known to us immediately. So it was just this really strange environment where we were immediately put to the test, and there was a few select characters within that cohort who just sort of hit it off. And I remember just being there and sort of like scoping out the crowd and seeing Ty, and he had that same little mischievous look in his eye that I had, and we kind of connected eyes and went, yeah, me and you, we're going to cause some trouble. Me and you are going to be mates as we get older, and that was the birth of the friendship, actually.
And that's really interesting, because you said earlier that you only knew each other for 1.5 years, 2 years before you then moved to the UK, Ross.
That's correct.
And what's interesting there is that, you said earlier that you classed yourself as British. You served for the Queen, 3 operational tours with the Royal Marines. What I'm interested in is, when I used to play rugby, whenever there were South Africans in our team, whether it was uni, school, for the town or city, they were always incredible at sport. And I'm interested in, when you compare your sporting background when you're in South Africa directly to when you moved to the UK. What was the difference? Like, is it more competitive? What's happening?
I'll answer this because Ross was absolutely rubbish at sports in SA. He was very good at shouting at us and telling us what to do.
Just like outright.
He's very good at getting people to do stuff for him, but he was very bad at doing it himself. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. So he's not wrong, okay, because again, going back to the fact that I was a late bloomer, and I was a late bloomer, dude. Like, I was half the size of the other kids at school. I was also a year younger. I think it's because I was just really clever or something, you know, it's fine. But
it's because your parents couldn't wait to get you out of the house and sent you to school early.
That's fine. That's probably true too. But when I started that rowing camp, I was tiny, so I actually got made the coxswain. Right, so I was the person that was at the front of the boat, steering the boat and genuinely shouting orders. And then the bigger guys were the powerhouse. They were the engine room in the boat. And when we got to rugby season, that first rugby season, you know, I was nowhere near the A team. I think I was in the C team, like bordering B team reserve, but I was nowhere to be seen really on the sports pitch. But then when I moved to England, if you're asking culturally about the difference in sport, there was a big difference between the schools that I went to. So Parktown Boys High School was, like I said, very, very prestigious sporting school in South Africa, and very high spirited. I mean, to the point where it was compulsory for every pupil of that school to be there on a Saturday to support the first team rugby. Wow. Everyone had to be there, and the war cries that we would practice throughout the week were sang at the top of your lungs, and it was extremely pride driven, and it was a fantastic experience and a fantastic school to be a part of back in the day. It was also very strict, and it was policed by the school, the higher years.
Yeah, the pupils ran the school. So if you were in your second last or your last year at the school, the responsibility fell on you to make sure the school grounds were clean, the kids were behaving, there was no, no smoking or any of that other funny stuff that would go on. That was the kids that were policing that, not the teachers.
And so it was like a kangaroo court system. Yeah. You know, it was the lads that ran it. And before we go any further, Ty would know best because he landed up being the head boy of Parktown Boys High School.
You can say that again if you want to.
Ty landed up being the head boy of Parktown Boys High School.
We'll clip that bit out.
Well, it's only because I left, right? Because I would have been the head boy if I had stayed. So, do you want to talk more about Parktown, dude? Before I go into the difference between that and the UK school?
Yeah, look, I'll give my opinion on it because I wasn't at a UK school, so I wouldn't know. But the thing I think the difference is that UK kids in general kind of grow up quicker than kids back in SA because we don't have public transport, we don't have like a safe environment for kids to just be walking around willy-nilly. The parents of the kids will drop you off at school or take you to wherever you're going on the weekends to meet your friends and then collect you from the same spot. So your parents had a lot more kind of like overseeing of what you would, although we caused shit anyway. Like,
of course, you always find a way.
We'd get dropped off somewhere and run 5Ks in our jeans and our trainers down to the one bottle shop that sold to us, and then we'd get drunk in the park, whatever. But we still had a lot more overseeing or input from our parents, whereas I think in the UK, because there's so much freedom at a young age that, kids just go like all over the place and can get into some really bad stuff. So we were more sports focused in SA, where I think is in UK, the kids were more focused on like getting a pack of smokes, going down to the park and, generally just being cool.
That's really interesting though, because I think recently we've had different guests on, some of them who are really interested in team sports and some are really interested in individual sports and the benefits and what tends to happen to you or what you tend to become if you do one or the other. But I think the team sports side, maybe it's the same in South Africa as the UK. It seems similar to me that, if you're playing a team sport, you learn discipline, you learn respect, you learn how to take criticism really, really well. And I guess I'm interested in, Ty, you played touch rugby for South Africa in the World Cup twice, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that how Parktown Boys helped you develop, took you to that level of elite sport?
I think... I definitely think that, Parktown was responsible for a lot of like my positive outcomes in my character and all of that stuff. I definitely think like my drive and dedication and wanting to be the best was kind of started at Parktown, because when I got into Parktown, I was from a very like nothing primary school, and the sports was there and I enjoyed doing sport, but it wasn't my life, you know. And when I got into Parktown, at a young age, like Ross was saying, the older kids are the leaders of the school, and there was like the head boy at the time when I got in was a god. You remember Warren the Brain?
Warren the Brain, yeah, never forget
He
him.
was an absolute gangster, man. Everybody, like when I saw that guy, I knew that that's who I was going to be, like from the first day. And that's where my focus and my goal-driven behavior began. And comes to like I'd like us to talk about identity and stuff later on, but it comes down to that's who I wanted to be, and I was making every decision to get that position. Not going out, not getting drunk, all that kind of stuff. And then that same behavior was so ingrained in me that when I got into the touch system, it wasn't okay for me to just be an average player. You know,
so you found that role model at 12, 13 years old. There was a 17, 18-year-old guy who was your role model. That's really interesting.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
it won't just be for Ty. It would have been for every one of us.
For 110 kids that year, with that guy was the dude to be.
He was head boy as well, right?
Yeah, Warren the Brain.
Yeah, so not only was he the captain of the first team rugby, I think he was the captain of the water polo team. He was the head boy, and he just had he had gravitas. So,
man,
he walked in and the whole school, because of the culture of the school, and it was governed by the upper years of students. There was obviously the teacher system in there and the formal discipline system, but that didn't even get a look in because it was all controlled through the pupils, right? And he was 10 foot tall.
Yeah,
he wasn't, but like in our eyes, he was a giant of a man of stature, and everyone went, that is who I want to be. From that cohort anyway, and then Ty actually realised that 4 or 5 years after.
But I guess that doesn't really happen in the UK, or at least in my experience. You don't get that because you come in and you're the bottom, and you sort of stay in your clique or your clique.
You do, yeah.
That's really interesting.
In your form, yeah. So I'm just going to cycle it back and talk about the difference. And from what I've said about Parktown boys, you can start to already get a sense of the passion and the pride that school had installed in us, right? So when I got to the school in the UK, again, I went to a good school in the UK. My parents sacrificed a lot for me to go to Bedford Modern School, and it was particularly because they had a very good rowing team. And I had excelled in rowing back at Parktown Boys, even though I was just a cox. But I'd coxed the team to All Africa Championships, right? And we were on a high trajectory. So they wanted me to carry on doing that. So that was a big part of why we landed up going to Bedford Modern School. And I walked in there on the first day, and I've been looking forward to this because I had 6 months off before I joined the school because of the time that I left South Africa. I could either join that year late or wait 6 months and then start the year fresh. And we decided to start the year fresh. So I'd been looking forward to this for a long time. And I walked in there and I was immaculate. My shirt was perfectly pressed. My tie was perfect. My top button was done up. My blazer was clean. It was everything was good. My shoes were polished. It was good to go. And I was so excited to start this school. And I walked in, and the first thing I noticed was the kids looked like a bag of shit. There was dudes with their tie halfway down and their buttons undone and their shirts hanging out, and some of their blazers were creased. And I was like, this is the first day of school. So I was walking around, bearing in mind I was still really tiny at this point. I was chest poking dudes hey, tuck in your shirt. Hey, pull up your tie. Hey, do this. And these kids were like, what's the matter with the new guy? This weird South African kid's just coming in. He's tiny and he's just shouting at everyone, calm down, new guy. And it wasn't the first year of high school. This was year 9, right? So I think it was the second year of high school. So, immediately people were like, right, who's the new guy? And I was sort of scoping it out and wondering why all the kids were like this at this amazing school. And very quickly I realised that actually there was a lack of discipline. And I could do whatever I wanted at that school and not be reprimanded for it, really. So, I diverted my attention from positivity to negativity because I knew that there were no repercussions.
Because going back to Parktown, we used to get lashed from from
teachers.
the teachers
okay.
or from the older pupils. If we were found to be doing something wrong,
Didn't do your homework, dude. You would have to bend over, hold the desk, and the accounting teacher, this old lady, would whack you with
a paddle.
fucking a wooden paddle with it had mainstay
Engraved.
engraved onto it.
Yeah.
Mainstay means discipline, dude. She used to whack you with this fucking
but she
paddle.
was also 80-something years old and she
wow.
could generate
Wasn't that hard
no,
no
dude,
way, bro.
she used
She could
every
generate
ounce of her
that.
power. She had 80 years of XP, bro. She was
What I
crazy.
was going to say was I thought it was about empowerment. So in the South African school, there was empowerment. The students would run everything. There was discipline, respect. But actually, there's actually a punishment side of that. That's actually running the law.
I think
No, they ruled by fear a lot. There was
Okay.
they
was
ruled by
that
fear, but for me, fear didn't keep me in line. It wasn't like I wanted to be good because I was scared of getting lashed. Like I didn't mind being lashed. That's a problem. And it didn't stop us from causing trouble. We still got into trouble. But for me, it was like I wanted to be that dude that other people would look up to later on, like 5 years, the next 5 years. I wanted them to be modeled on my behavior at the school, which I had modeled on, obviously, Warren, our head boy. So it wasn't the fear that got me to that point. It was more wanting to be better than everybody else. But I think the difference, if we go back to what the original question was, the difference between the UK and SA is that we had physical repercussions that we felt
very different.
instantaneous there and then if we did something wrong. Whereas in the UK, there was just, a finger wag and maybe no lunch money for the next
So what's
day.
interesting is that you had different schoolings after you changed Ross, but you both became high achievers, right? So you both, you competed for your country, or you represented your country in very different elements, but you both did it. What are the things that you think you can bring together that you learned from representing South Africa and representing the British military?
Well, I mean, there's elements that we can certainly say are synergistic in there, in the sense that we both appreciate what it is to operate at a high level, right? So what that looks like, because it's very different from competing for your local team, or I don't want to say your local regiment because I have respect for the army as well, but to be at the top of your game in anything is very, very different from being okay at something, right? So an appreciation of high level performance, we both bring that to the party because we understand.
But I think it's also a further step. It's high level performance, but in a team environment. Like, I think you have to be a lot more talented to be an individual top performer. Like you have to tick a lot more boxes across the board. But to be a high level performer in a team, you have to have a certain EQ.
Absolutely.
As opposed to just having the physical go. Yeah. And if you draw parallels or similarities between my background at touch rugby and Ross's background in the Royals, is that we had to understand each other's roles. Like within the team, you've got to understand what your role is, why you're there. And then you have to also trust that the other people are going to do their role and that you don't deviate from the plan to try and cover for them.
So that's a good point. And then often if you're in that leadership position, in order for you to trust that the guys in your team are going to be performing well to their roles, you need to be sure of the fact that you've given them the opportunity to grow into that role with sufficient knowledge and skill. So you have to pass that on, in that coaching aspect or that mentorship aspect. I think that's...
I think it's really good. I think it's really interesting. So let me bring that together, right? So you're both intelligent, successful, quite high energy leaders. How often do you bump heads? Do you bump heads?
Do you know what? I want to joke about this and say we do it on a daily basis, but we actually don't really.
We don't butt heads to the point where we'll have a blowout or an argument. We will have issues that we disagree upon, and there will be a stern word one way or the other. But we're I think we realize, for me, if we're talking about something and I see that, it sparks an emotional reaction within Ross, then I know, like, he doesn't get to that point unless it's something that he strongly believes in. So then I'll take a step back and say, okay, if he's acting this way, maybe there is something wrong, and then we'll figure it out. We don't butt heads against each other.
What is said there, the last bit of it, right? We'll figure it out. That's what we do. We solution the problem, and we know each other so well now that we know if we're winding each other up, or if one of us is in disagreement. We know that straight away. And sometimes if we try and push it a little bit, okay, I've definitely hit a nerve here. Right, let's rein it in. Let's solution it so that we're both happy. And really, that's been the key to DMC, is making sure that we're very happy. If we take it to the inception of DMC, there was three of us. And the third guy, Sam, he's a very good mate of ours still. But there was a definite clash in terms of like where we wanted the brand to go.
The vision. There was a difference in... Ross and I were more aligned in what in our end vision for DMC was. And, Sam's vision wasn't completely wrong. I think just the ratios of the sport brand versus adrenaline versus community, his ratios were slightly off to ours, and we ended up going our separate ways. But like we said, we're still good mates.
No animosity there. We're still really good mates, and I actually competed with Sam in a competition like 2 weeks ago. We were still really tight. We skydive together all the time. Occasionally wake surf if we can get around to it, but still really good mates. But we didn't align on what we wanted DMC to be, so he left, and then Ty and I were able to just do what we wanted.
Well, that makes sense, right? Because you've got to work towards that bigger vision. I think I asked the question because I think it's really interesting that, I work with my partner. So many people work with their mates, partners, whatever it is, and people always ask, how do you do that? And I think what they're actually asking is, when you do clash, how do you dissipate that? So it's cool to hear that you know how to work up to that point, but then to dissipate it and get rid of that.
I do not have the same relationship with my girlfriend, by the way. We can solution stuff all day long. We understand what our trigger points are, and then we can just fix it. I don't have that relationship with my girlfriend. It just goes from I've annoyed her to an explosion to death for a week, and then we just kind of forget about it and then carry on. There's no solutioning anything. That problem still stays.
That's where the head of danger comes from, maybe.
Yeah.
Disagreeing with my missus, head of danger. Gotcha.
Have you always been drawn to communities? Because we've touched on sport a lot here, but then also in the ways that you've sort of grown into your careers, and then you've built communities. Has it always been something you've looked for or needed? Your natural leaders, is something that you work towards? Or
I'm going to go and say that because I was an only child back in SA, I was kind of like, because my mom was working all the time, after school, I'd go back to people's houses and stuff. And I was kind of just always comfortable with having other people around. Not that I don't like being alone. Sometimes I like being away from Ross. It's peaceful. But I energize myself through the interactions of others. And I know you're not an only child, but you were the youngest by a long way.
By a long way, yeah. So I've got two older sisters. One is much older that used to live with us. She's my half sister, and I have another half sister who's closer to my age, but she used to live with her mum. So I almost grew up as an only child in that sense, where I didn't have a cohort of my age to interact with apart from my school buddies.
Yeah. Right. So it makes complete sense, doesn't it? It's sort of the lacking part of what you've always looked for.
And we're kind of really good at gathering other degenerates and other misfits around with us,
very good at that, actually.
We always kind of, we jokingly say that we're a polarizing kind of brand where you'll know from the day you meet us whether you like us or you don't like us, but one thing's for sure, you'll remember us, right? You'll always remember us. So we pride ourselves in doing what we're doing, but we make a couple of enemies and we make a lot of weird friends.
May the bridges I burn
light my way,
light the path ahead. Look.
I just want to briefly interrupt this podcast so I can talk to you about Nutrition Kitchen, who have kindly sponsored this episode. As entrepreneurs who are looking to stay as healthy as possible, fueling ourselves with high quality food without breaking the bank or wasting time can be tough day to day. Nutrition Kitchen solves that issue by delivering incredible meals to your door, tailored to your diet, whether you're trying to lose weight, build muscle, or maintain balance. They change their menus all the time so you can choose from a variety of dishes and leave the monotony of meal prepping behind. Now, back to our guest.
If you want to look at our backgrounds, again, Ty was head boy at school and did amazing at rugby at school, and then excelled that career further when he went into university and started playing touch rugby for South Africa. And he's always been in that environment. And then he was coaching touch and coaching rowing, you know, so he's always been around a lot of people. And I joined the military as soon as I'd finished at school. So again, I was just in that community, that brotherhood. And when we eventually got to living in Dubai at the same time, we started pulling that together, probably not consciously, but we started gathering the troops, right, and forming our own little mini army here, which is DMC. And that community we've been building for 4.5 years now, and it's really strong now.
Have you ever done a wealth dynamics test? Well, you should do it. It'd be really interesting to see how you both are probably very similar, but you like to go about stuff in different ways.
100%. We know that already.
But if you looked at it, I bet it'd be really interesting, because then if you look at like your team or who you hired, you could fit out people based exactly on how their personality's like. And I bet that you've got very slightly different ones, which is why you tend to understand each other so well.
Yeah, I think we're actually very different people, but I think we're very similar, aligned in our goals. I think that's
there you go.
That's a
big vision, right? Comes towards. This is why I want to talk about Dead Man's Click a little bit, because it's such a cool lifestyle brand, right? And maybe you don't want to talk about it as a lifestyle brand, but there's a lot of aspects about it that make it really appealing to lifestyle, because you look at fitness, socializing, mental health. But for me, one of the things that stands out is bringing people together. And I'm interested in what happens to someone when they join a community, but more so your community. What changes in their mindset? Why do people come and then not leave?
So we actually said this in the back of one of our presentations that we were delivering to potential sponsors at one point. One thing that's always going to be in fashion is, or fashionable to people, is people who live just on the edge, right? And we take everything that we do right to the limit of what's possible for us subjectively, whether that's fitness or combat sports or adrenaline sports.
Or pints in the
or
the
pints
beer.
or socializing. No, but seriously, like, you know, we give 100% wherever we are, if it's in the gym or the boozer or on the mats or, you know, under the canopy. And we're always doing stuff to 100%. And it's that thrill that people see and go, I want a slice of that. Even if it's a little slice, I want a slice of that, because a lot of people find themselves in a mundane life. They've got it, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it, but they've just found themselves in a scenario where they're bored and they just don't find that excitement anywhere. They don't have, a lot of time, they just don't have people to go and do this stuff with. And that's a big part of why we created DMC, is because it's very easy here to get caught in the cycle of just boozing, especially as a youngster, as a young expat. You get here and you just land up on the piss like 3 or 4 times or 5 times a week. And you're just always living in a cycle of, I'm hungover and I'm regretting what happened the night before, 2 nights before, and I'm gonna numb that out by boozing more. And that's all they do, just work and drink and work and drink. And Dubai's got so much to offer, so much. And that's how it started, right? Because we were doing all of these activities on a daily basis. We were either wake surfing or skydiving or snowboarding at Ski Dubai, or
In the desert on the
or
bikes.
in the desert, and like, or in the gym, and pushing ourselves really hard. And we went, why are other people in Dubai not doing this as much as we are? It's all here, it's all accessible. So we were like, right, let's start to document some of this, and we'll just put it on a platform like Instagram. I had the name in my back pocket. So we were like, okay, let's do this. If a lady can get 1 million views on YouTube for baking a cake, then some people may be interested in what we're doing out here. So we did. We just started documenting, and that's literally how DMC was formed.
And where did the name come from?
DMC, Dead Man's Click. So in the military, there's a term called the Dead Man's Click, C-L-I-C-K. And what that is say you're in an urban environment and you're hunting down the enemy, and you pop the corner and you see the enemy and he hasn't seen you yet, and you line him up in your sights and you flick off the safety catch and you operate the trigger. But instead of the gun going bang, the gun goes click because it's had a malfunction, right? An ill-fitting magazine or it's jammed. Now the enemy has the drop on you and you've got a malfunction weapon, right? So it's a dead man's click. It puts you in a vulnerable position. So we decided that we would call it the Dead Man's Clique, CLIQUE, which is a collection of people who look the Grim Reaper in the eye on a daily basis, right? Through the activities that we do or through the fact that we're always taking stuff to the edge of the envelope. And that's how the DMC was born.
What an incredible name and what an incredible like sort of description of the community. That's amazing. And what I think is really cool about what you're talking about there in terms of the community is that community is so powerful. And like you said, people in Dubai are looking almost at the wrong things. And I think fun will always be on trend. It's just people go through phases of not looking at it in the right place. But the community piece is more powerful than ever since COVID, because you want to be around people, and the supportive side of that is amazing. And I think it's a good segue into 2023, Ty, where you've got this community. You're fit. You're both working hard, and you're building this audience, but also this really almost brotherhood, inclusive brotherhood. It's not.
I think
brother and
family,
sisterhood, yeah.
Brother, sisterhood, sure.
Yeah, family,
sure. And then in January 2023, there was a huge test in your life, which the community, I assume, has supported you. But can you talk me through what happened in January?
Yeah. Okay. So it was a Sunday morning, and normally Sunday was our activity days, right? We'd be very hungover from the night before, obviously 12 pints deep, probably a pack of Marlboro in there as well.
At least.
Wake up. We had a running challenge on that day, so we had a running challenge going for the month of January. So we were doing we did an 8K run. I think we did it weighted because we're stupid. Then we had the government games training. Yeah. Ross and I were kind of the leaders of our government games team, and then head down to skydive, and we did 3 jumps that day. And I realized coming down on the 3rd one that was my 99th jump. So Ross was like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna do your 100th jump for the last jump of the day." But Sam wasn't there, and a couple of the other boys weren't there. So we're like, "Nah, we'll just put a pin in it for now, and we'll gather all the boys. We'll come back next week, and we'll do your 100th in a big way jump." So packed up, whatever, went back home. My bike was parked at your house. Ross dropped me off at the bike, and I was riding home. Because it had been such a great day, I wasn't riding the way I would normally ride. Normally you're fast, you're loud, you're aggressive, so that people can hear you, and that all the problems are coming from the front, right? You don't worry about anything around you when you're in the bike. But the day was just so great, man. It was probably one of the best days that we had in a long time. And it's a weird, the roads are quite weird. It was a weird setup. I was on 2 lanes on the far right-hand side, and then there was another 3 lanes, but it still wasn't part of the actual highway yet. It was like that weird slipway. And a delivery rider had crept through the cones that were separating the 2 lanes. And I didn't see him because I was worried about the certain part of the road. I was worried about a car coming up behind me and turning in on me. When I looked up, there was nothing I could do. And I hit this guy at 70, 80 Ks an hour. And then all hell broke loose, landed on my head. I know my visor flipped, broke off the helmet, but my music was still playing in my headphones. It was a really good song too, so it was emotional. And I just instantly knew that something was wrong, because I kind of knew I was still in the road, so I tried to pick myself up to move away. And my body was just super heavy, man. Literally dragging my back legs across the turf. I didn't even know my arm was broken at the time. I didn't really know anything. I just knew I had to get out the road. And some guy ran past and said, "Yo, man, you've been in an accident. Just chill out." Also, I'd heard my Apple Watch was beeping and saying weird things. "You've been in an accident," whatever. And then it must have done what it was designed to do. Funny enough, I bought that watch because I knew somehow, subconsciously, like I said to you, the Apple Watch has got crash detection. So because I'm riding so much, I'm going to buy that watch, And it did what it said on the tin. Good for it. Yeah.
But actually, we could almost say that the watch is responsible for Ty being alive today. right?
We can't say that 100%.
Not
but
100%, but do you want to go into it? Because remember, there's the ambulance that it called out was of a specific caliber.
Yeah,
as well.
so apparently, this is what I was told from some of the policemen afterwards. They said that the watch sent a signal to the police and to the emergency services at the same time. But the message it sent to the emergency services was a specific type of message. So they sent a specialist ambulance out to come and get me, a neuro, spinal, whatever. There was a doctor on board that ambulance. So it could be responsible for me being alive. I don't know whether I would have died or not died without the watch. But it definitely had a hand in the day going as best as it could possibly have.
Well, this is what I read. So when I was reading about it, it said that Dubai was in that almost trial phase of linking the emergency services to the Apple Watch.
That was the first recorded traffic incident on the watch. Yeah.
And then I actually think it was an interview that you said 70% of spinal injuries actually happen in the recovery of the person that's had an accident.
Yeah, twisting your head, like twisting the body or manipulating the body pops the spine for permanent damage. Yeah.
But whereas actually, you've got this damage, but you can work on it, and you're not going to give up. And there's possibilities one day that you'll be able to
100%, bro. I'll be back, but I just don't know when. That's the problem.
Ross, do you remember where you were, or do you remember what happened when you got that phone call?
Yeah. Oh God, I remember it clearly. It was like Ty was saying. It was a Sunday, and we had just got back to my place where his bike was parked, and I was going for a Sunday roast with my missus. So I faffed around at home for a few minutes before we then got into the car, and we were heading to the Palm to go have a roast. And I drove, and when I got there, I looked down at my phone, and I just had loads of missed calls from Ty's ex-girlfriend. Like my phone had been blowing up, and straight away my heart sank. Like straight away, because it was...
She'd never phone you.
She'd never call me otherwise. Like, why would she call me? And instantly I knew something was wrong. And then I phoned her back, and she was just like, Ty's been in an accident. And because of the nature of like who we are, I knew it wasn't going to be a light one, you know what I mean? And I knew that he was in the bike, and like, I was like, Jesus Christ, like what's happened? And she didn't have all the information, and I didn't know what to do initially. So my missus was like already annoyed with me because we were late for this roast, so I didn't want to just be like, right, let's go straight away. So I said, let's carry on with the plan. We'll go get the roast. And in my head was gone, because I was just thinking, and I couldn't talk to him. Normally if I'm in any sort of bother, he'd be the first person that I rang, and I couldn't talk to him, so I didn't know what to do, and I just sat there, and we actually ordered the food, and then I couldn't even eat it. And she was like, no, like, let's go. And I was like, are you sure? And she was like, yeah, of course I'm sure, let's go. I was like, okay, fine. And then we just went straight to the hospital. And I was a wreck in the car on the way to the hospital, because I was just thinking the worst. And then just before we got into there, I just composed myself and then walked in, and saw everyone standing around there. And I was like trying to hold it together, and then popped my head into the initial room that he was in. This guy was so high. He's so high. He was in a shit state. The first thing that I saw was his the soles of his feet were sort of pointing towards the door, but his left foot was like completely dismantled,
mangled, man.
And there was a screen up, around his knee, so he couldn't see what was going on that side. And I saw his foot, and I was like, holy shit. And then sort of popped my head around, and he was like, hey bro. And I was like, don't worry about behind that screen, completely fine, no dramas. And then I was chatting to him and trying to make sense of what was going on, trying to sneak bits of information from people without letting him know the severity of what was going on. And it was just this really intense and bizarre situation, which was hideously sad, but we didn't know the extent of what was going on, and certainly Ty didn't. And he was just sitting there strangely happy, like content, because he was just high and didn't know what was going on. None of us did. And we stayed there for a few hours. I don't know how much of that day you remember. We stayed there for a few hours and tried to make sense of everything and find out as much information as possible. But yeah, I remember the day vividly.
And what's the rehab looked like since then?
Man, it's so slow, bro. Like, I think that's one of the most frustrating things for me, being an athlete and suffering major injuries before. Once you decide to start rehabbing and you start recovering, it's a quick process. I mean, I say quick, it could be 6 months, it could be 8 months, but it's a quick process in terms of from day 1 to day 10, there's improvement. From day 10 to day 20, there's improvement. You know what I mean? Whereas with this, it's not a linear experience. So some days you go to physio and you're good. I say good. You're capable of doing certain things to a certain degree. The very next day, you'll go to the same physio with the same exercises, doing the same things, and you are dog turd at it. You know what I mean? And you play this game with yourself of like, am I actually getting better? Am I making this all up in my head? Like, what, you know, what's the situation? And it's been, what, 16 months, 15 months now? And if I ask myself if I think I've improved, the answer is probably no. But if you ask everyone else around, they'll say, yeah, bro, remember when you were in hospital, all you wanted to do was just go outside. Yeah. You know, you were stuck in a bed for 5 weeks, didn't get outside. So it's improving. It will continue to improve. And like I said, I will be up some day in some way. Yeah. Whether it be with a battery pack, jet rocket fuel thing on my back somehow, or, you know, or through the magic of medical miracles or whatever. Like, I'm not stressed about that. It's just frustrating because it's taking so long. And I've got to watch everyone else, like, have my life.
Yeah, sure.
Which is tough.
But it's that mentality that's contagious because you can feel it that it's going to happen.
100% it will happen, bro. I promise you right now, we'll do another sit down when I'm up.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do a standing one.
Yeah. We'll do a standing episode.
What I think's, well, what I've read about, and you know, I've been to one of your classes in with DMC, and the atmosphere is tangible because everyone's in that mentality of like, we can do more, we can do this stuff, and it's amazing. And what I want to touch on is that there was a lot said at the time about how the Apple Watch saved you physically, and I know you wrote to Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, to thank him. Did he ever reply?
He replied the next morning, bro.
No, oh, really?
Yeah, the very next day.
What did he say?
He just said, you know, we're so glad that we could help, like, save you, and, you know, that the watch did what it was supposed to do. Please reach out to our team because we'd love to hear more about the story. And
okay, amazing.
That's how it came through.
So that's what I read, and I was like, that's amazing that the watch, the tech in this day and age saved you physically. But what I'm really interested in, and you touched on there, is how you were saved or helped back to who you are today mentally by the community that you'd already been building and the friends and the family that you had around you, and how that impacted you.
I 100% would not be in the situation I am right now if it wasn't for the DMC family. Like, we can call it a lifestyle brand, you can say community. We don't really like using those words. I think in Dubai, the thing that everybody lacks in Dubai is a family base, right? Everybody's family's back home, you know, or scattered around the world in some various way. But what everybody lacks in Dubai is family. And that's what DMC actually is. We've had this idea for a while to kind of bring a family feel to it, because, you know, there's if you look at the dynamics of the group, there's like the dad, which is obviously me, and Ross is like the
ugly auntie.
The mother figure. Ross is the emotional one, and then you got some drunk uncles at all of the parties. You know, it's the same dudes that are always getting drunk. So they're like
that's the Finns and the Tomos.
Yeah, they're always off doing something, and then you got the aunts that, you know, faff about with people and, you know, cuddle everyone and whatever. And then you got all the newbies to the family, which are like the kids that everybody's like trying to look after and steer in the right direction in Dubai. So we definitely have a family structure, which is what I think is so valuable about DMC. And the biggest evidence of that is when my accident happened. We went comms dark for 4 days or something. I didn't want to have people, you know, busting my phone up with, oh, so sorry that this has happened to you, and let me know if you can do anything. But when I came back around to wanting to be, when I came out of ICU and there was visiting hours and stuff, my room was packed, man. We had 20, 30 people come through the door on a daily basis, every day for a month. People were in and out. And bringing me grapes. Why do you bring grapes? I don't know why everybody brings grapes.
It's a classic. I
had
don't know,
so
it's
many
good.
toppers grapes.
When we had our car crash, we had grapes and brownies. Brownies?
No, we didn't get brownies. We just got grapes.
You had some brownies. I ate them.
That's only why you
that's
come
what
visit
happened.
me, so that you could stock up
I was
on
there
your
every
sugar.
day. I went there every day. It was just to raid his collection of sweets and chocolates and grapes. Actually, it was great. I didn't have to buy food for a month.
For and then also, so I didn't have medical insurance because there was an issue. That's a long story. But off of the kindness of everybody that was in our community and the greater, kind of the greater community outside of that community, they were able to help me fund most of my treatment at Mediclinic and my rehab in Abu Dhabi. And it was outrageous, man. Like I've never felt so humbled in my life as I did when I saw kind of the whole community come together just to help me, which is
It's so powerful, isn't it?
It is really powerful, and actually, I think this is a good opportunity now because, hopefully this goes far and wide. Just to say thank you as well to absolutely everyone that helped in some capacity, even if they couldn't donate any money.
But if they shared the
but if
story
they
or
shared it,
whatever,
thank you, thank you very much.
really.
So someone who's listening to this, who maybe they're not in Dubai, maybe they're somewhere else, but they don't feel like they have that community. They feel like if they maybe had an accident or needed some help, they don't have that network around them. What would your advice be to that kind of person?
I would say that if you haven't got a community around you now, like if an accident happened now, it's too late, right? You've got to invest in humanity, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'd say, listen, if you're not in Dubai, if you are in Dubai, come join DMC. That's what I'm telling you now. But if you're not here, go find some sort of team sport or some hobbyist activity that involves a lot of people. A really good one, which is kind of individual but kind of team at the same time because you
Don't
have
say
a
High
cohort.
Rocks.
I'm not going to say high rocks.
Good.
I'm going to say jiu-jitsu, bro.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is really powerful. It's really, really powerful. Loads of people from all over the world are seeing the benefits of doing jiu-jitsu because it's physical, it's thought-provoking. Like, you can't just be a knuckle dragger and go in there and do well. You have to really think about what you're doing. But the jiu-jitsu gym that you go to will adopt you as a new member, man, and they will take care of you in such a strong.
There's also a family structure in that, isn't there?
There's an
There's
absolute family structure.
there's a hierarchy, and the older, the more advanced people will look after the new people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
Seek out, invest in humanity and seek it out.
seek out a family that you pick, right? Not the family that was given to you. Make a family.
So it's interesting because it comes back around to community again, right? This is the ongoing theme. So lots of people listening to this will be quite inspired about the communities that you've been part of, but also are able to build. People are magnetized to you too and what you build. What would you say to them if they've got a business or they've got a sports team, they want to build out a more solid community? How can they do that? What would your advice be?
I think the advice that we give is be real, right? Be who you are and be unapologetically so. So if you're like us and you're a piece of shit, then be that, but be that as best as you can.
wear it. Like, that's who we are. That's what we do, right? So,
Yeah.
Wear that on your sleeve and don't try and conform to social graces and just because you think that's what other people want to see and do. The reason that we've been able to do this for so long is because we don't deviate from the plan. We are who we are. But another point is be consistent, man. Like, you've got to be consistent with whatever you're doing because it's going to take time. Community building takes a long time, but if you don't give it the environment to grow by being consistent, it can never grow. So many people, we've seen this 100 times here, they try and build a community, whether that's another run club or another Saturday boot camp, we see you. If you're trying to do that and it's not successful after 1 month, don't stop there. The ones who have done well are the people who have run the course, stay the course for a long time. They're the ones who are still successful now. Just because 4 people come to your boot camp doesn't mean it's unsuccessful, it's new. You have to stay the course. You have to carry on doing it day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, through the different seasons. When it's low season here and the high seasons, you have to carry on doing what you're doing. It's the only way that you're going to give the community a chance to build is by being there.
And you think there's power in bringing people towards you that are the same as you, right? So you attract people that are like you?
Not,
think
not
we do.
like us, but want a slice of what we have. Not like, what I have in my back pocket, but I mean like the part of the community. So the 3 pillars that make up DMC is adrenaline sports, and that's inclusive, everything from skydiving, wake surfing, riding motorbikes and desert, snowboarding, skateboarding, blah, blah, blah. Fitness, and we mean that like now Hyrox is a big thing, you'll kill me for saying that. CrossFit, but there's functional fitness here in Dubai is really big, and there's competitions on a weekly basis here, and we've got some really competitive sportsmen and people who want to just try it as well without being competitive. And combat sports falls into that fitness category as well, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, and we do all of it, right? And then the biggest one for us, for the community, is the social aspect, and that is why we run the boot camp, which is completely free, and it's been mostly free for 4.5 years. We did try and charge for it at one point. It didn't really work out. But the reason that we keep it is because we want people to once a week, at least once a week, come and join us and have a coffee and a chat and sweat with us. That's what we want.
As opposed to existing on WhatsApp groups and stuff.
Yeah.
Too many of these things is all virtual nowadays. Going to sound like an old dude on this, but...
No, you're right though.
Like you meet... For any example, let's say you want to get into a relationship, you go on Tinder, you download an app, you look at a bunch of fake photos that the dude's probably filtered 18 times, and then when you meet them, you're disappointed because it's not the person that you thought it would be. Or
you don't know how to conversate face to face because
your
entire personality is different behind the black screen, right? A lot of people don't have that face-to-face interaction. So that's what we're trying to do with the communities. Once a week we do boot camp. Once a week we do an informal social where we'll get down the boozer. But once a month we try and have a more formalized social. I say formalized as in it's organized, because when it happens there's nothing formal about it. And we've got one coming up this weekend, right? It's Christmas in July. It's Ty's concept. It's halfway to Christmas. It's Christmas theme, and it's just a big piss up for anybody who wants to come that's related even by proxy to the DMC crew. And we've got like 30 plus people coming down. It's going to be absolute carnage.
What's the big vision for the brand DMC?
That's a really hard question.
Yeah.
We've been trying to work this out for the past couple of months.
Before we started recording, we touched on a few big brands that are like streetwear, lifestyle, or community based. They've all got the big vision. Like, what is your big vision? What do you like about it? Where could it go?
I think we want world domination.
Nice. Start there.
Yeah. So like, I think what would be good is if we could have spin-off DMC. Like, I want to use the Hells Angel as an example, right? Not drug running and stuff. Like, that's not what we want to do. But
not that they all do that.
No, they don't all do
not
that.
All
no.
angel fraternities are involved in nefarious activities. Hats off to the red and white.
But like, it would be nice to have a DMC charter in the States. Have one in the UK. Have one in SA. Have one in Australia. Have one in Europe somewhere. That all the other rebels and misfits and renegades can go find a home in, and do something. And also we have more reasons to then go and visit them all, which would be sick.
We have an idea about how we would do that as well, but it's something that we're still developing, and it's not something that I really want to talk about now until it's more formalized or in play. But yeah, that would be...
World domination, I think, is the right
Bringing
answer.
people together, community, network, fitness, fun.
Yeah, but those are the pillars, right? That make it up. So as long as it's a representation of the core of what DMC is and in different parts of the world, that would be amazing. That'd be super cool.
Chaps, that was really, really interesting. Thank you so much for your time. I hope the audience got so much from that. It was brilliant.
Thanks for having.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us, dude. Yeah, boy. Sure.
If you like these episodes, feel free to subscribe to our Healthy Hustle newsletter below, where you'll get behind-the-scenes information from our guests, as well as from the studio operator who helps us create these cinematic episodes. It's also full of business advice and tips, and it will help you join the community of healthy entrepreneurs.